Hi there, and welcome back to the third episode of the Are They Really Here podcast. I'm your host, Isaiah.
And I am Hybrid Hank.
And we are so excited for today's episode. We're going to be talking to you about my personal favorite alien story that has made its way around the internet, the Dulce Alien Base Wars, starring Phil Schneider. This topic is our most popular video currently on the TikTok platform, coming in hot at 635,000 views and counting. And we cannot wait to get into this. It is a story that has absolutely crazy things happening in it, from alien firefights to military cover-ups to suicides. It's an insane story. It's almost hard to believe, so we can't wait to jump right in.
Absolutely. I bet all of you can't wait to watch this because we're going to get into really gritty, nitty-gritty detail into this story, and since it is our most viewed video already on TikTok, I'm glad we can finally show this to you guys in long-form podcast so we can get into the actual meat and potatoes of this situation. So yeah, looking forward to getting this going.
Yeah, so the firefight itself actually took place in 1979, and a lot of the information we've gathered comes from a lecture Phil Schneider gave in 1995. Phil was one of the witnesses on site for this alien war. So when he gives this lecture, if you notice this bouncing back and forth between 1995 and 1979, that's why, just to stall any confusion there. So without further ado, let's jump in. So Phil Schneider was an explosives engineer who worked for the United States government and had a high security clearance. So this means he worked on high security military bases, outposts, things that the general public or even a lot of high ranking military personnel could even see. So Phil claimed he was involved in a firefight within the Dulce base, which eventually became known as the Battle of Dulce. Schneider said that back in 1979, while part of a work team that was drilling near the alleged site of the base, he became suspicious due to the presence of special forces around the site. But the turning point was when his team was drilling, and according to Schneider, all of this black sooty air came up when they drilled holes into the ground. And when Schneider went underground to make an assessment of the strange output from the holes, he encountered a 7-foot-tall gray alien. And Schneider said of this creature, the stench was worse than the worst garbage can. The entity was absolutely horrible.
Oh, sounds like one of my aunts from my planet Nibiru.
Yep, it's one of the things that happens when you're co-hosting a podcast with a hybrid. You tend to hear a lot about those aliens. I haven't met Hank's cousin yet. I really don't want to after reading that description.
You don't want to, brother. There's a reason I'm here and not back home.
So, in a panic, while Schneider is down there encountering this 7-foot-tall gray alien, he grabs a pistol that he had happened to be carrying with him and shot and killed 2 other aliens. Now, this set off a chain reaction. And according to an article found online titled Alien-Human Battle of 1979 in New Mexico, Alleged Eyewitness Report, which retells Schneider's story, the alien made a sort of circular motion with his hand, waving it in front of his chest. Schneider imitates the motion, and the next thing he knows, quote, this blue beam hit me and just literally opened me up like a fish. And he showed the audience his hand. The beam burned off some of his fingers on his left hand and hit his chest. It also burned his shoes off and apparently his toenails.
Yeah, that's how you ask if someone wants to fight back home, actually. So Phil Schneider screwed up. He should not have retaliated. And by the sounds of it, it looks like the guy was packing plasma weapons. So sorry, Phil, lost there too.
Yeah, definitely some type of weapons that are not available to the general public. Absolutely insane to even guess what this would look like. So Schneider claims he was then saved by a green beret who sacrificed himself, allowing Schneider to become one of 3 survivors of the Battle of Dulce. Apparently 60 humans were killed, along with an unspecified number of aliens. So for this next quote, it's a bit of a long one, so this comes from the lecture. Phil goes into some of the base operations, what it looks like, aliens, in the after effects of the actual event itself. So I just want to take a moment to pause because this is a bit of a read. And I did want to mention as well in the first episode, I mispronounced Dulce. I pronounced it as Dulce. My bad. You guys can troll me for it in the comments. I don't mind at all. But I wanted to ask Hank what his opinion on the story is so far.
So, first thing that stands out to me, well, smart for him to be suspicious seeing a bunch of special forces and green berets standing around any site. So, yeah, I would be as well. But by the sounds of it, the weapon that was used against him, it has a lot of parallels to what people see around UAPs. Of course, there's no UAPs in this story since everything is underground. But it seems like when these craft use a warp drive or whatever they do to actually warp gravity and be able to move at insane speeds and maneuvers, there is some sort of plasma field around them. And, you know, it would make sense that they would use plasma weapons because it's probably the most powerful form of weaponry you could have. I remember when we were playing Halo when we were little kids on what legendary difficulty? It was probably just grunts in that cave, to be honest. It says 60 humans died. I doubt any aliens died if they really did get into a fight, but it's possible. We'll see as we get going in the story.
I remember those days playing Halo and teabagging each other on the Pillar of Autumn. Those were good times.
Oh, it was a Pillar of Autumn.
So here's a quote from Schneider, and this interview in a portion is actually available on our TikTok as well. The full interview is buried on YouTube of this lecture. It's kind of difficult to find, but it is out there, so I encourage all of you, go listen to it. It is incredibly captivating. It's fascinating. This is a quote by Schneider. I was involved in building an addition to the deep underground military base at Dulce, which is probably the deepest base. It goes down 7 levels and is over 2.5 miles deep. At that particular time, we had drilled 4 distinct holes in the desert, and we were going to link them together and blow out large sections at a time. My job was to go down the holes and check the rock samples and recommend the explosives to deal with that particular rock. As I was headed down there, we found ourselves amidst a large cavern that was full of outer space aliens, otherwise known as large greys. I was attacked and I shot 2 of them. At that time, there were 30 people down there. About 40 more came down after this started, and all of them got killed. We had surprised a whole underground base of existing aliens. Later, we found out that they had been living on our planet for a long time, perhaps 1 million years. This could explain a lot of what is behind the theory of ancient astronauts. Anyway, I got shot in the chest with one of their weapons, which was a box on their body that blew a hole in me and gave me a nasty dose of cobalt radiation. I've had cancer because of that. I didn't get really interested in UFO technology until I started to work at Area 51, north of Las Vegas. After about 2 years recuperating after the 1979 incident, I went back to work for Morrison and Knudsen, EG&G, and companies. At Area 51, they were testing all kinds of peculiar spacecraft. How many people here are familiar with Bob Lazar's story? He was a physicist working at Area 51, trying to decipher the propulsion factor in some of these craft.
I was thinking too that there's a lot of parallels between Phil Schneider and Bob Lazar's story. It seems like they have a similar career trajectory. 2 guys working at these places and noticing some strange things and ending up getting themselves involved in strange things involuntarily. Phil, I would much more elect to be in Bob's shoes rather than surprise a party of aliens and have 40 of your coworkers die. So I think Phil Schneider got the short end of the stick on that one.
Oh, and just wait till we get to the end here. It's the stick can't get any shorter for Schneider. Bob Lazar seems to be enjoying his life. He's encountered a little bit of fame with his outreach. People believe him as well. Phil Schneider's been buried. I mean, half the people who aren't involved in the alien UFO discussions online or out there are even aware of Phil Schneider, whereas Bob Lazar is a little bit more common of a name. I still think it's a bit of a reach. I don't think you're going to walk into everybody on the street and they're going to know who he is, but yeah.
That's a great point, actually. I didn't even think about that. And that big part of that might be the Joe Rogan effect of Bob Lazar showing up twice on his podcast. So, unfortunately for Phil Schneider, he's not going to get that opportunity, but we'll get to that point later in this episode here.
Maybe they could do a seance.
Hey, exactly. Oh, yeah. A little ayahuasca.
So, going back to earlier, how there was 2 other survivors of the Battle of Dulce. So here's where it gets interesting. Schneider said the other 2 survivors were in Canadian nursing homes and were being protected by Canadian police. No American, including Schneider himself, was allowed access to them for fear of kidnapping. So, one of Schneider's other revelations was that the Dulce base is not an isolated case. It is said of his reveal, there's a war under the ground and it's been going on since around that time. He spoke of 1,477 underground bases around the world, 129 of which were located in the United States. Each cost $17 billion or more. He said the black budget, hidden from the U.S. government agencies and from the public, garners 25% of the gross national product. Military forces from multiple countries have been engaged in such warfare with aliens, he said. So, from Schneider's point of view, the aliens don't come from up there. They're down below. As above, so below.
And, that really does fit in with the, also with my hybridization, but beyond that, we'll move on from that. The fact that a lot of these UAP are seen coming from the ocean, more often than not, NASA doesn't catch a lot of these things coming from deep space. Where they're seeing most of these things come from is right within our own atmosphere, from the ocean. And yeah, there's probably a reason we've only explored 90% of it, and that would be a good place to have a base, and directly underground as well. I'm sure governments have a good read of what is there. I'm sure they don't touch a lot of that.
If you get into some of the cryptid subreddits and subcommunities on the internet, there's a lot of theories that there's underground tunnel systems between the national parks, and there's these strange creatures, especially around the Appalachian Mountains. So I wonder if this is connected at all. I mean, we are optimistic skeptics. I can't speak for you, Hank, but for myself, I love to look at these stories with the wide-eyed imagination of a child. Still not necessarily say, hey, this is fact or fiction, but look at it and hope something's out there, but we don't know, right? But there is some definite commonalities between the two stories.
Exactly, and the way we bring this to you guys, realistically, we're not debunkers. If we find information that shows any of these cases are absolutely BS or made up, we will address it, we'll bring it forward to you. But we want to explore these stories. We want to typically find these stories which have credible witnesses and tell it from their perspective. There are many debunkers out there. I'm sure you can go check them out. I'm not against that, but that's not typically what we're going to give you here. We're going to give you from the perspective of these experiencers or witnesses, whatever. And we can give alternative perspectives too from people who know them that say otherwise. But no, this is what we're giving you from Phil Schneider's perspective and what the story is. So realistically, I am open-minded. I'm not married to any one idea. It could be, who knows, but I don't know. I like telling it from his perspective and from all these witnesses' perspective. I think that's the route we're going down, and clearly enough people nowadays are coming out with credible stories which are very similar. So I think it lends a lot of credence to Schneider's story here.
Yeah, definitely some fascinating patterns within those theories and within those strange stories, the urban legends that have been passed down from generation to generation, specifically with those underground tunnels, the underground bases. So back to the bases. This is another quote from Schneider. So start quote. Presently, there are 129 deep underground military bases in the United States. They have been building these bases day and night unceasingly since the early 1940s. Some of them were built even earlier than that. These bases are basically large cities underground connected by high-speed magneto-leviton trains that have speeds up to Mach 2. Several books have been written about this activity. Al Bielek has my only copy of one of them. Richard Soder, a PhD architect, has risked his life by talking about this. He worked with a number of government agencies on deep underground military bases. And around where you live in Idaho, there are 11 of them. The lecture had been happening in that area. The average depth of these bases is over a mile. And they, again, are basically whole cities underground. They're all between 2.66 and 4.25 cubic miles in size. They have laser drilling machines that can drill a tunnel 7 miles long in one day. The Black Project sidestepped the authority of Congress, which, as we know, is illegal. End quote.
Yeah, and that sounds about right considering all the rumors we're hearing nowadays of potential reverse engineering programs that are above top secret, even above top secret, where they're not even a black project that's on the books. It is off the books. There are designated special access programs, or SAPs as the US government calls them, that are considered to be black programs using black money from the Pentagon. These other programs, potentially including these underground alien bases, will not be on the books. So the head of the unacknowledged SAPs, they don't even deal with this. So this is above top secret, this right here. And it looks like I have a diagram. There is rumored to be 4 different levels in these bases. Do you have this? Are you gonna pull this up, or would you like me to go through this now?
You can go
Sure,
through it for sure.
sure. I remembered this from years ago, and that's why I pulled it up now. And it's from Phil Schneider's base. It is claimed, and this is just claimed, by the way, I don't know this for fact, that in these bases there are 7 levels, and basically there's a big elevator shaft that goes down the middle, and yeah, there's underground shuttles to all the different bases, including this main one. And the first level would be security and communications, and second level would be human staff housing right below it. And then the third level, the one below that, is execs and labs, human execs and labs. And the one below that is where they would do the mind control experiments on the 4th level. And then below that is alien housing, below that is genetic experiments, which your boy might be from. I might be a product of that, unfortunately. It's very painful to this day. I still don't get the proper treatment, unfortunately. Trying to get compensation for that. And then the lowest would be cryogenic storage. So Walt Disney, probably, down there. Or somewhere else. But yeah, that's rumored, by the way. Don't quote me on this. But this is a very famous part of this whole story and legend. So yeah, in case you want to get some mental image of what these bases would look like. Typically, that's what they're rumored to be designed like.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane to imagine what these bases would look like, and we're positive there's some secret military sites out there, some black sites that are not on the record, things of this nature. So it's not too big of a stretch. We don't know what they're testing, where they're testing it, and there's definitely some underground labs that do exist. So this, even if this is all hoax, even if this is all the ramblings of a schizophrenic man, he's still touching on something that definitely exists out there, right? So Schneider, towards this time, 1995, he's becoming paranoid. He's claiming that multiple attempts are being made on his life, and they're trying to silence him, and he's pushing through that and trying to be an advocate and calling for government transparency at the time, and that's why he gives out this lecture. So the craziest thing about this whole story is a few months later, Schneider was found dead in his apartment, and he was, found dead in his apartment with piano wire wrapped around his neck, and his death was ultimately ruled a suicide. Now, there was also people who were close to the investigation that said there was an apparent nature of torture. So he was possibly tortured before his death and then murdered via piano wire. And to all that had a view on the inside of this, it looked like a military-style execution.
I would say the most damning evidence here is piano wire in an apartment. Do you know anybody that has a piano in their apartment? I don't, personally, but hey, that's just a different time back then, I guess. I don't know. But I've never seen a piano in an apartment. That's a pretty heavy piece of equipment there. And why wouldn't you just use rope? I feel like that would be less painful. There's a lot of easy. Sorry, that's getting a little morbid here. Sorry. Yeah, piano in an apartment. Sorry, that's what sticks out to me here. Yeah, I believe that. Out of everything, it's the piano. I don't buy it.
Yeah, we know that Schneider has experience with guns. We know that he has experience with he had cancer. He definitely has access to medication. He could have easily either ended his life via gunshot, overdosing. There's better ways to go with than piano wire. I can't imagine that can be very a very easy way to go. So it does reek of a cover up, and we know that this is typically what happens to those who speak out about the government and aren't given the forum to do so in a viral manner, that they're taken out before their word can be looked at as gospel or as truth. And this definitely looks like one of those things. Now, Schneider, his story was so crazy, and he doesn't really have much proof other than some of the physical marks on his body. But nonetheless, it's still an absolutely fascinating case just to go through it from start to finish and really examine it.
Yeah, and one of the things where it really bothers me, this type of thing where back in those previous decades is almost like the way the government operated beforehand was much more vicious to witnesses and people speaking out about this. And it kind of lends a little bit of credence to the fact, or the theory of mine nowadays and many others, that the government is trying to whitewash the whole topic from before the year 2004 with the modern UAP office, where they created that it only studied like 144 UAP cases from 2004 onward, almost as if they're trying to erase all of the research and all the tactics they've done beforehand to find out about this mystery and also to cover it up. So yeah, they might be covering their own asses there a little bit, and unfortunately for people like Phil Schneider, their story might never get to be told except for here on this podcast.
Yeah, and I think we're just scratching the surface here. It's incredible to think of what is going on. That would be, just to get into the theory side of this story. If you were to think about it, we're wondering where these UFOs are coming from. A lot of people are starting to look, and you mentioned this earlier, Hank, from the ocean, from maybe not outer space, from other dimensions, us from the future, but we often forget they could be from underground. And I'm not going to jump into the conspiracy side of things and really look into, Hollow Earth or anything. We're not going down that route. But if for whatever reason there is some type of species that has been alive on this planet for a long time, we know how evolution works. We know how two species that are rivals tend to take the other out. Look at the Neanderthals. Look at any other hominid. With the evolution of humans, typically one is extinct by the end of the interaction. So it's not too far to say there could be a highly advanced species that is living beneath us because of something that happened years and years and years ago. And as Schneider mentioned, this leads credence to the ancient astronauts theory, Eric von Donovich. And it's kind of cool to think about, like, maybe this is where they're coming from. Maybe that's where the UFOs are, and they're not trying to start any war, but these underground bases are approaching their territory. We're getting close.
Who knows? They might just be okay, let me try that word again. They might be incubating the Earth with humans, or however you. Too big of a word for me to use properly in a sentence there. But they could just be waiting until we're ready for them to actually emerge. But like my co-host Isaiah here said, two apex predators typically don't coexist. The only time I think that's happened is with us and like wolves. That's it. They evolved with us, but how often do you see other predators get along with other predators without one wiping the other out? Like, there's no competition for us here. And I doubt if there was a species that's clearly at least 1,000 times more advanced than us, that we would be able to get along symbiotically with them in perfect harmony. It's a pipe dream, honestly. And so a lot of people, even us, we still do wish for alien contact. I know I like to think that they're benevolent too, but then my pragmatic brain turns on and I go, oh, it's a very small chance that we would actually be able to coexist with them. Bad kitty. And with my train of thought here. This cat.
Sorry, my cat has jumped up on the table for all of our audio listeners on Spotify. It is a very cute cat. It is gray. It is not a gray alien. Just to describe it to you, that is what the cat looks like. But, if we really examine the story too, going back to the start, the aliens did not attack first. Schneider panicked. He grabbed his pistol and he shot both of them. The aliens, if what Schneider's saying is true, were defending themselves. They were not attacking. They maybe were saying hello. The alien made a circular motion with his hand, waving it in front of his chest, and Schneider imitates the motion. But we don't know. So they could have been living down there peacefully. Maybe they are hostile. You can't know until we actually go down there. But what we do know for sure is that the Dulce area has had some strange, bizarre goings on for years, and a lot of people, especially in the area, and we've had comments on our videos, say that it's because of this base. It's because of what is happening there, and what's happening underground. Now, are the aliens still there? Did they vacate the base after this alien war? We can't know, but we can speculate. And if I was some aliens and we got attacked by a bunch of humans, I would definitely hazard a guess to say they pieced out of there pretty quickly.
Exactly. And sorry for my video and audio listeners. Audio listeners, I'm a little thrown off here trying to fight this kitty. It's knocked the microphone a few times, so I'm sorry if we have any interference or unpleasant audio. But yeah, it's I would probably freak out and shoot too if I ended up surprising a party of 7-foot-tall, garbage-smelling aliens. So, not to be offensive, I'm allowed to say it. I get the pass. So, yeah, it's terrifying. I mean, I would be terrified if I was him. I'd be terrified if I was the aliens. Probably, we probably look ugly as hell to them. Realistically.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys look ugly as hell to them, but I look all right halfway. I look like a mess under this mask. That's why. This is for my breathing, actually. It has an aperture that helps me survive. So, but you don't want me to take this off, even if I could. This is for you guys.
Now, one thing that I found interesting within the lecture that Schneider gave was that he also worked at Area 51. So this definitely gives credence as well. Obviously, he can't prove it. Anytime anybody works at Area 51, it's blacklisted. They are not giving out any information. So it's an interesting question to wonder if Bob Lazar and Schneider ever crossed paths. I'd love to look up that, and I know we'll go over to Lazar at some point on one of our episodes, but I'm going to do some deep dive research and find out if Lazar has ever even said anything about Schneider and go into that, maybe bring it up on the next episode with Bob Lazar and find out exactly what's going on.
Boy, the growing pains of making a podcast. Oh, sorry, Isaiah. I'm just gonna. Jeez, keeps throwing me off track, this kitty. And yeah, that is a great point, though. Back to what you were saying. Phil Schneider really is an unsung hero of alien folklore. I gotta keep just on. Yeah, it was rubbing against my mic. It was shaking it back and forth. Trying to push him away here. This story really is one of the most underrated stories, which I think is evident by the fact that it got so many views when we did talk about it. It's exciting. Pretty sure the Half-Life series is basically based on this legend. Loosely, but not that loosely since it has the alien bases. And yeah, it has a lot of appeal, and I really think it would be interesting to try and find any connections between this story, Lazar, and possibly any others who might have any close ties with Phil Schneider.
Yeah, I've never actually played the Half-Life games, but I would love to dive into that and see what the influence is. We talked about on our last episode how Roswell has affected pop culture. This, obviously, to a much smaller extent. It's one of those stories that when you hear it, it's so crazy. Most people think it's absolute BS, right? So, great ingredients for some interesting fiction, that's for sure. And yeah, that's some great information. I had no idea about Half-Life, and I had no idea about its influence there.
Yeah, I actually recently beat Half-Life Alex, which is the VR Half-Life game that they came out. It's like a full Half-Life game that they created just for VR. It is terrifying, I gotta tell you. I would not do well coming to face with these things. I'm shocked that losing fingers is the only thing you had. I would have a heart attack on the spot. So, yeah, in VR is enough for me. I would never. I don't want to come into contact. I know I do. At night, I lay awake being like, I hope they just like land. But believe me, once they actually do, it's a whole different ball game. I'm not sure they would be something you would necessarily want to approach or interact with once you actually saw these things. Imagine going into the woods and seeing like a leopard or anything. This is that tenfold, and it's intelligent. So yeah, good luck. Not to get too morbid with it, but
Yeah, so that's the Dulce Alien Wars story in a nutshell, and we're fascinated by it. We can't get enough of it. We'll probably make more videos on it too. We plan at some point to launch some videos on YouTube in long form, not just a podcast talk show, but also a little bit more of a video essay type format. We're really trying to expand the Are They Really Here brand into something bigger than just what it is now. So keep a lookout for that. And we always love to hear from you guys of what you want to hear us talk about. We have some topics that we'd love to discuss, and we'll definitely get into that. But, let us know in the comments. Let us know on our videos what you want us to bring up, our next video idea. We've had a few good suggestions, but if you're listening to us on this podcast, you're one of the first. We still are very early. We don't have a ton of subscribers, don't have a ton of viewers. So thank you so much for supporting us here. And leave a comment. Let us know what you want. And we'll start doing contests and stuff like that, and prizes, things like that. You guys are here first. You'll be able to take advantage of that to its full extent.
exactly. Genuinely appreciate all the viewers we have. I'm overwhelmed already on, of course, TikTok, but even on YouTube, this amount of subscribers we have, it's not easy to grow on YouTube, especially with UFO content, which we love. And so we didn't really want to do anything else. This is what we're really into. So yeah, thanks so much, guys. Tell us what you want us to look into next. Leave a comment below. Press that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell so you get notifications for all future uploads.
Yeah, and definitely go follow our TikTok if you haven't already. Chances are you probably will be coming from there anyways. So if you aren't on there, thank you so much for finding us. We don't really know how. But, we're going to be going over the Wilson Davis memos. We're going to be going over things like the Phoenix Lights. A ton of different cases are out there. The abduction cases, I absolutely love those. Rendlesham Forest is a big one as well. So many things we can talk about, and we're just trying to figure out, are they really here? So thank you so much for tuning in on this episode 3 of Are They Really Here? I'm Isaiah.
I'm Ivory.
And this is us signing off.